Hello, this video is going to cover some of the basic functions of Tinkercad, and it's going to show you some easy ways to create some pretty neat objects without a whole lot of difficulty. So when you log into Tinkercad, you're going to see, if you already have creations, you're going to see them here in these little boxes. And the creations might have some crazy names. If you don't name them something, then the Tinkercad system names them these crazy little names. And so that's why these are here. I could have named these something else, but I didn't, so that's why the names are here. So I'm going to create a new design. So to start anything new, I'm just going to click this blue button here, and that's going to open up the Tinkercad work area. And the first thing I need to notice is that I have this canvas right here, this whole thing right here. And the canvas is always going to be basically the same size. For some of the things you build, this is going to be perfectly fine. For some things you build, this won't be a big enough canvas. If you want to make the canvas bigger, all you do is click Edit Grid, and it starts with 200 by 200. So I could make it, let's say, I'll make this one 500 by 500. If I was making something big, I might do that. And so it's a lot bigger. Now, I may be building something and realize while I'm building that the grid is too small. At any time, I can change the dimensions of the grid. So it's very important to know. So the first thing I'm going to do is work with a cube. Those are the easiest ones to work with. You have these shapes on the side. These little striped ones are actually holes. That's a little bit more advanced, but not that advanced. Then you've got a box, a cylinder, a sphere, a scribble, which is kind of cool. And then you have these different shapes right here. And these are all fun to play with. But the best way to learn Tinkercad is just with a cube, because it basically has all the functions we need. So to get this, I'm just going to hover over it, click it, and drag it over, and put it wherever I want. And the first thing I notice, I've got this little box here. I actually like to minimize this box. And the reason why is all the information in the box I can get more handily right on the cube itself. So I'm going to click this little arrow here and minimize this box. If I wanted to open it back up, I could. So with the cube, I have a couple different things on this. I've got these little arrow deal here. I've got some gray squares, some black squares, and this little triangle cone thing. And all of these are very important. They serve very important functions. So the first thing I'm going to do is just hover over one of the gray squares. So if I hover over it, it turns red and I see some numbers. And you may notice that those numbers represent the dimensions that I've got here. So this would be like 20 by 20, 20 wide and 20 tall. So if I hover over this one, this is 20 tall. This is 20 long and 20 wide. If I hover over this one here, so let this one go. There we go. Hover over that one. And you notice it's 20 by 20 by 20 because it's a cube. And so that should have all of the same dimensions. Now, this little cone guy here, if I hover over it, nothing really happens except for it turns red, which means it's activated. I'll get to what that does in just a minute. But these gray cubes, these gray little boxes, are your friend, because by hovering over them, I show values. By clicking on them, I make the values stick. Now, this is 20 by 20. I can just click on here and click on the 20 and change it to 40, and I immediately change the dimensions of this object here. Now it's no longer a cube. Now it's a rectangle, or a three-dimensional rectangle. So I can also, of course, click this guy here and make it 40 tall. So now it's 40 by 40 by 20. And then I can click this one here and make this 40. So now it's a cube again. It's just 40 by 40 by 40. So the easiest way to dimension or to change the dimensions of your object is to use these little guys here. If I want to, I of course can click on the little, or hover over the black little boxes and pull my object, and then I can notice the numbers are changing. This is definitely handy to do as well. It just takes a little bit of tact to try to get the exact number. Like if I wanted to get 170, I have to be very careful. There we go. I have to be very careful. So in terms of speed, if I wanted to make this one 150, then I would just click here and change this to 150, and that's how I would do it. So I almost always just use the buttons and the numbers to redimension, resize my object. That's what I usually do. So that's how you do that. Now, the object is flat on the plane. So I'm going to move the plane so I can see the object better. There's a couple ways of doing that. One way is to right-click your mouse pad, which I'm doing now, and then using the pad itself, I can move everything around while I'm holding the right click down. That's one way of doing it. Another thing I can do is click on this little guy and turn it as well. I find this is very sensitive, so I usually just right click and move things around. But either way works for you, so I can look at this object and see what it looks like and inspect it and whatnot. So if I wanted to take this and move it up, or in fact, let's do this. Let's take another cube and put it here. So both of these objects are on the flat plane. They're actually stuck to the plane. If I wanted to move this one here and put it on top of this one here, I would use this little cone guy. Because when I click him and start moving him up, you notice 3, 4, 5, 6, this number down here will change as I move him up. So that's basically how high the bottom of the object is off of the ground. So to get him on top, to get him on top of here, I've got to figure out how tall this one is, and this one is 40 tall. I figure that out by clicking this little box here. So I'm going to take this one, and of course I could drag it up, or I could just take this number and change it to 40. So now this one here is at the same height as this here. Now I can use my little mouse and move him around all I want, but you'll find this is, again, very sensitive. It's very easy to move things and not get them exactly where you want them. What I like to do, and I find is more accurate, is instead of using my mouse pad to move things, I select the object that I want to move, and I use the arrow keys on my keyboard. That's much, much easier. So I can click the left arrow, and that moves it over. And I can move it directly on top of this one here. I think that might be right. And then I can rotate this one here. If I wanted to put them right on the corner, click this again, move them over. It looks pretty good. I can look at it from the top to see if it's flush, and that looks pretty good. So that's how you do that. Now, a couple things that I may want to do with this. I may want to rotate something. So this one here is exactly flush on here. I can rotate it by clicking this arrow, and you notice this little scale thing pulls up on it. Go like this. It's a little bit easier to see. See the little scale? And then there's a degree sign. This is actually 0 degrees. And again, I can just pull it and shift it like that if I want to. Or I can say I'm going to go 45 degrees. So I click here, click 45, and that turns him exactly at 45 degrees. So however I want to do that, I can. And then, of course, the other thing I can do is rotate him this way. So again, I can pull him like that. Or I can just click here and go 45 degrees. Oops. The back arrow there. There we go. Click here. Change this guy to, it's pretty sensitive today, 45. There we go. So it's kind of an odd looking object, but that would be 45 and 45. So if I needed to build something that was pretty intricate, that's how I would rotate that. I can rotate this entire thing if I want to. Let's go 90 degrees. Boom. That does not get this. So notice that. This one here rotated, but not that one. So if I wanted to rotate everything at the same time by having it this way, it'd be very difficult to move this over here in the correct position. It could be done, but it'd just be hard. The best thing to do is to morph both of these pieces together into one piece. The way I do that is I drag over both pieces. These pieces right here, now they're both highlighted, and I notice when I do that, this little tool becomes non-grade. These are grayed out, so non-grade. If I click this, it's going to put both of these shapes together. Okay. Now this line is here because it's not touching like that. So now these are one shape. So now if I click this object and move it, everything moves the same way. So pretty neat. Now I may realize, you know what, I really don't want that one as part of the shape. Again, I can just field over both. Now this is grayed because I can't put things together. They're already put together. this is no longer grayed out. So this is like the unput together button. So I'll click that one, and that basically separated these so I can pull him off if I want to. So with just those little pieces of information, there's an enormous amount of stuff you can do with Tinkercad. I will show you real quick the little holes here. So if I wanted to put a hole in something, I could grab the cylinder, and let's just kind of like put them halfway in here, like that. And then put these guys together. So then I have this little hole right here. So what I had to do that, if you noticed, is I had to select both objects and then put them together with the put together little tool. And then that basically puts the hole in part of the object. And now I have that just like that. So very good. And with this tutorial, you probably configured how to build a lot of things. There's other little buttons here. They don't do an enormous amount of things, but they definitely can enhance whatever builds you're doing. So I think you've got enough to work with. Good luck.